Hello, Internet, and thank you very much for watching and listening to Cloud Native FM podcast. This is my first stream of 2025. And with already you predicting this should be on platform engineering, and we know many reasons why. But let me go straight to my guest, Ahmed Babar from New York. Where are you, Ahmed,
I'm
as of
based in
now?
New Jersey, so I'm still
Oh.
considered New York in some sense. How are you?
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you very much for joining. And just tell us a little bit about what you're doing, how you actually celebrated the new year.
Thanks for having me. So what I'm doing, I'm a principal engineer at the New York Times. I look in the Kubernetes space, the platform engineering space, how to make things better, how to make developer experience better, how I celebrated the New Year's. I think I didn't do much. I was just taking some CNCF exams, trying
Oh.
to get some goals going for 2025. But that's about it. How about you? What did you do?
Awesome, absolutely. It's been some relax finally, and I think that thankfully so because of the 2024 is going to be a very tense, exciting, joyful, a lot of the things we can speak about in conjunction with what 2024 has given us. So, can you give us your recap of 2024?
Oh, my recap. So it was a really great year from different perspectives, like platform engineering getting more mature, a lot of people getting into the Kubernetes world, or at least debating is it the right thing, is it the wrong thing, where to go from there. A lot of conferences between reInvent, where we streamed last time, and then
Yes.
KubeCon Europe and North America, KCD New York, many different events, meeting a lot of community folks around. But platform engineering is still one of the things that it's been rising across the board in the industry, and people are investing more and more because they believe they have seen value into it. So I'm excited to see where that's gonna put us on the roadmap for 2025, and how we gonna leverage that maturity or that trend in making things better, and how we evolve from there.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, please remind me, I think in 2024 is a year when you recognize as a CNCF ambassador.
That is correct. That was on the second half of the year, which usually is application. There are two sets of applications. Were early in the year and last half, which is August. And then I got announced as a CNCF ambassador just a couple months ago in November. So I'm super excited about that. I'm looking forward to many things to do with the CNCF, and I'm sure people are familiar with the CNCF, but if you are not familiar, it's that's the community of open source, where you want to do cloud native, you have to go there, see what projects. There's a lot of projects, there's a lot of trends, and I think what is making the community better is the feedback that you get from
Mhm.
not really just folks working in the industry, but also from enterprises and companies who are using these tools to share hey, this is working for us, this is not working for us. You can see many reports coming late last year about what people are using in the industry, what are the right trends, what are the wrong trends, how we can facilitate. So if you looking to know more, please look forward for CNCF reports, or hit me up on LinkedIn or here, you know where to find me.
Absolutely. And I think before we kickstart our predictions, do let us little bit about KCD New York in journal. Because it's happening early quarter of the year, so people should pay attention to this event.
Yes. So here's a funny story. KCD New York last year was I was why we didn't before last year. I was one of the cube cons. I was oh, there's a KCD. Why we don't have one in New York? And then started. It was a great team. Julia, Kelly, Valentina, Cedric. They are all great folks that we are working with from last year, and others too. This year we are still continuing to project that event, and which is probably, I'm not going to spoil the date yet, we don't have an exact date, but we are targeting June of 2025. We are still settling on the date. But what do you expect from events like that? KubeCon is really great event to go for, but they are big. There are too many sessions. There's a lot of knowledge and information you get from KubeCon. However, as a KCD approach things differently. We are trying to make like,
Mm.
sure, less sessions, but like more intimate like setting where like you have a couple hundred people, few hundreds where like you can chat, know from people, spend one day easy, quick around your local access, like you don't have to travel anywhere. But we encourage people to come from everywhere. So if you are in a different country, you want to come to KCD New York, definitely welcome. But like it's majority people coming around New York, and we're gonna have like a lot of sessions. We're gonna have a lot of interesting stuff, and we're gonna have a really cool place too. So like be aware that it's happening. If you want to follow on the LinkedIn page for KCD New York, please do. Also, we have like a community on CNCF. We have like the KCD event. We publish all of the updates. So, looking forward to it.
Yes, absolutely. Guys, you should pay attention to this KCD New York event because already there are so many good companies sponsoring the event, and there is wonderful organizer like Ahmed and multiple other are actually investing a lot of energy into this event as well. And also New York is a place where people should want to go and explore all the culture, all the tourist spots. It's a very good place to be in and talk about all things cloud native. So Ahmed, now we can finally kickstart, and I hope we have some very good question and debate in the chat from our audience as well, because this is a section dedicated to answering people question, and we wanted to know where we heading towards to. So if let's start with some very basic question at the and on the chat. I think one of the earliest question we can start about is now people starting, and I think started happening in 2023. In 2024 I see more resonating on this word where people are calling Kubernetes should be invisible. Like if I am an engineer, I am a Node.js developer, I do not need to care about how we are packaging the app in the Kubernetes. It has a pod, and pods has replica set, and replica set has deployment, and deployment is actually need services, and services has ingress controller, and then we need a privacy, storage, blah blah blah. I think at this moment of time, some developers might leave the company. So now people are thinking around. There is a time now we should there should be a time now the Kubernetes should be invisible for all of us. Only those nerdy people, they're still interacting and calling them the resources they want to deploy the application. With platform engineering, are we closer, or are we so few far from this abstraction that the platform engineer or the portal providing us?
I love how you call people like running Kubernetes nerdy. So that's very interesting. But like, here's the point. Like, what are you trying to achieve from that perspective? Which, like, I don't think we are far, but it really depends on the use cases, like how you want to implement it. Like Kubernetes itself, it's an orchestrator, so you could use it in different scenarios, and you can see like different companies and different cloud providers are even trying to hide this for years. Like talk about like Google Cloud Run for a while. It's similar Kubernetes based, but they're hiding it from a different perspective. There are others where like other platforms, they are Kubernetes dependent, but like they don't even expose that. So I think like the point is you want to be flexible into your organization at some point where like here's the thing. When we are like let me break it to you into two spectrums, or like in a spectrum with multiple layers. There are an organization who are like heavily invested into like how to do the workflows. I think the idea at the end of the day is like how I make my developers more productive and remove a lot of the cognitive load from them to make that. So if I'm to your example, if I'm bringing a Node.js developer and say like, hey, create this app, I do want him to think about like, hey, I need a deployment ingress. If I'm using a mesh, I need a virtual service. I need this. I need RBAC. I need service account. Like these are too many things to think about. We're like, it's just I'm deploying a simple app. So like, why should go through all of that? So that like abstraction is needed. It's helpful. But like, think about different use cases where like I'm trying to do something more complex. I'm trying to do like jobs with some other things, and I want my deployment to have like some different releases and like different things, and I want to like handle more. So the idea is like, uh, one thing that I love to have is like have the whole thing first and then start abstract what you don't need, but you still provide escape hatches when it's necessary. If someone, like most of the problems comes, as I have seen in different roles, where like you are too narrow on a specific approach, and then when you try to skip or provide something extra, you can't, because like you
Hmm.
closed all of the things. But like if we go the opposite and we start like Kubernetes, the good about it, it's an open source. It's widely adopted across the cloud providers. So any cloud providers provide something like that. You can get it locally, all of the kind of stuff. So you don't need to like make all of engineers in your organization know about it. Sure, but like some might need to know. So like how you provide like the both areas uh to your organization. Should we make it more abstract? Definitely we should. We shouldn't like we should by default make it abstract, but still uncover what people can get access to if they need. Like it's the idea is always like, what is the goal? Like a Kubernetes or platform engineering or whatever, the goal at the end of the day is one thing, is like increase productivity, make user interface simpler, make workflow easier. So that depends on like your organization. Some organization workflow easier might mean like just like a Helm chart. Some other
Hmm.
organization might mean like a lot of manifest. Some other organization mean like you can't even touch the Kubernetes stuff. So it's really depend. But like, are we near? Yes, definitely. You have seen kubevela, you have seen different things, you have seen score.dev. Like there are many abstractions coming on top of Kubernetes that makes things easier, but it's the engine behind this whole thing. So
Yes, absolutely. And I think there are some good news in your debate or answering to this question as well, because I think now we come to a point where we see people love Kubernetes feature rather than Kubernetes itself. And I think it's going to be a very good in the debate on the table, because Kubernetes in general is not for every problem you encounter. It's become complex. Sometimes you feel like it's having a car with garage attached to it all the time. Now let's say you are driving and your car is going to be, your tire is going to bust. Now you go to the garage and pull up the new tire and fix it up. Or let's say your radiator catch fire. Now go into the garage and put up some firing station and then save it. But let's say you just drive only 10 meters from your home, and now you're going with this garage. That's not possible. Some might laugh at you. So I think that's where the Kubernetes is debates come into the play. But I think the next portion of the Kubernetes is still very confusing, because we talk about is, as a Node.js developer, I don't want to know like why, how the deployment services or packaging all things up. I don't need to know about it. But for the infrastructure engineer, when they deploy stuff into the RDS on AWS, on Google Cloud, they need to know the VPC, subnet, or virtual machines and the protocol and blah, blah, blah. With the tools like Crossplane, Kubevela, you speak about it, we can get rid of all these very fancy detail and package up a composite resources and then deploy stuff in there. So if someone who are listening to us, they haven't heard about these two tools like Crossplane or Kubevilla, or even they want you to actually get rid of the all the fancy details of the cloud, so spin up databases, what should be their strategy to go about it? And also the cost is major challenge these days on every time we see in the internet.
here's the thing, and here's like one thing I want to be very detailed and focused oriented about. Like we usually choose a tool before the problem, and
Yes,
sometimes this is not the way of problem solving. Like I love
absolutely.
Kubernetes, but I agree with you. It's not for everyone. It's just like there's a hassle of running it. Sure, if you're running for a POC, that's quick. If you run it locally, that's cool. But like once you start running productions, there's upgrades, there's components, there's different hundred things can go wrong. Like even with cloud provider in the mix. Like I'm not even talking like about your managing your own control plane. We are talking about like managed Kubernetes. Still a hassle to do
Yes.
all of that. So the point is, you have to focus on like what is the actual problems that you are trying to solve. Is your organization having problem with like productivity? Are you trying to commission too many apps? You have to find like like one thing that usually works best, because like 80/20 rule is very important to me. It's just like we most of the cases you go for a solution, you go for a problem solving, trying to solve, and you bring a solution that solve like 90% of it, and you say like there's still 10% missing. Like, do we even, I'm not ignoring that 10%, but like, is that this whole idea? I don't want to stop the whole cycle about that 10%. I might find the different solutions that work for them, or a workaround to work around it, but I don't want to like be like leave all of the good solutions because it doesn't fulfill everything. There's nothing 100%. So where we go from there is like, is your organization like using RDSs and all of that kind of stuff too often? Like, is a cloud resources is a problem for you? Can we abstract that with anything? Could be like work with engineers who are like, hey, here's like some applications are even like, hey, I'm gonna write my code. It just like, here's my code, just do whatever, just make it work. And some engineers like how we'll write it in a container. So like, can we do containers for everything? I think containers provide like a very good way overall of shipping things faster. Makes like a lot of standards like the OCIs, all of the things are now working good. So either like you running containers for if you have a container working, probably will work on Kubernetes, will work on other servers too. So that's like out of the way. The other thing is like to focus on like what's your other problem. Like now I have the code shipped. Normally you don't ship code alone. You ship it with like some sort of a cloud resource or some sort of connection. How I optimize that is, let's talk about databases. Is databases a problem? Let's solve for that. Or is storage is a problem? Let's solve for that. Or something completely else, like how to make it easier. I remember there was one reinvent I believe 2 years ago, and I have seen a company, just forgot the name, but they were demoing something in Backstage that like when you create an application, you don't choose too much other than I need an application, I need storage, and it gives you a bucket behind the scene with everything. Or I need a database, and it you just select the size and not even the actual size. You say small, medium, large, and it gives you a cost, and it gives you everything. So like, that's all you care about. I need a transactional database. Maybe I need like developers sometimes, and I'm included. We over engineer on things, and I was like, yeah, like a database would work, but like I may need something else, and like I have to focus on too many things. Uh, so which technology? I don't know until I know what's the problem I'm solving for. So is it
Yes.
Kubevela? Is it Score Dev? Is it like what I'm really trying to solve? There are many. Crossplane is a good example. You're saying about cloud resources, but like if you look around, there are many other things. I have seen people like optimize for GitOps bridge with Terraform. The Open
Mm.
Tofu is another example. Like it really depends on the organization, and you have to keep in mind that you are also trying to find a solution that not only works for engineers but works for other things too. Like when I mean by other things, like things not application based, the things like infrastructure, like how to do that. Not everything has to be Kubernetes based. So like I would disagree if someone say like Kubernetes is always the right choice. But it's a good choice in most cases that I have seen. But like some cases, if you're building an app, you're telling me, hey, I'm launching a Kubernetes cluster because I'm building an app, like we're gonna have a big argument here because like one cluster for an app doesn't seem right to me from operational complexity. So for me, it's kind of like a problematic. But like I would go serverless. Yeah, the like Kubernetes also has a downsides. When we talk about if we talk about scaling, it's a problem that people have trying to solve. Like there are physics that you can't beat. Like you need to scale, you need more nodes. So that means like that would that be the right thing or not? Like you have to over provision in some cases if you have spiky traffic. Is that the right solution? So don't big the tool before you big the problem, and that would be like the thing to go for.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a very, very good consideration to make, because you're absolutely spot on. We pick a tool before this understanding the problem, and that's where the confusions comes up. And I think you're absolutely, that's very good lessons to everyone. So Prashant asking which tool, I think you talk about it. I think for usually what I look at the some of the problem I see, like I think usually you create some bucket out of the layer. Like you need policy enforcement. Some of the project I'm working on, we are using mostly like policy enforcement for the Kyverno. For GitOps things, we use Argo CD. Sometimes we use Flux as well. And also some of the container stuff is very good, but some is very bad. You need a nightmare. Oh, my container spun up first, then application comes, and then second time now I rewrite or redirect the traffic to the application. That's container plumbing is usual. So I think I hope to see the VASM become more innovative, and it's give me a universal binary that I can run on the cloud, data center, or at the edge. But I think as use it's but VASM is getting a lot of things like spin cube. You can use VASM alongside Kubernetes to deploy some stuff in there. But considering, I think for my tool these days, basically some sort of VASM, and that's not on the production side. Production side is still container. That is my experimenting phase. And I use AKS a lot. Also, some of the project on the EKS side, GitOps, Prometheus, Argo CD, Prometheus, Kyverno, YTT, Carvel, and KCL. That is my tooling these days as well. But it's still quite a lot of other things as well. But Prashant, do let us know as well. Uh, Prashant, also, are you using OpenShift? I would love to see how is OpenShift is working these days as well, because I'm not very much used to it as well. But let's talk about it on the other angle. Like I think one of the other debate, like we know platform engineering in journal comes up in a different bucket list available. So Ahmed, can you tell us what will be the most impactful trend in platform engineering in 2025? We spoke about it, Kubernetes abstraction, and that's rightfully so. We spoke about some WASM integration that's already been happening. Now the AI driven operation. So with platform capabilities, or how to actually make a platform that actually solve AI or have AI capabilities in it there. Because one of the problem I see is that when you embed AI in anything, your cost is skyrocketing and people are fighting with them, and some people might be going to bankrupt if they do not able to find a solution. So if somebody is using the platform approach, is there any solution out there in the market, or some of the builders they can could approach for the AI driven operations? Have you look at it, or what's your general thought on this problem?
So here's the thing. Like again, problem before solutioning. What I could see
Hmm.
AI helps in certain scenarios. Like let's think about workflow. Like if you are talking about like how you build a workflow, you have to code it. You have to build it in a different way. Is a workflow engine or different things. Uh, where I think like Gen AI specifically, I'm gonna be specific about this one. Gen AI and agents and all of that kind of like hype helps. I think helps in the problem on building things faster. What I mean by that, and instead of you focusing on like how to make like the triggers and build your workflow engine and all of the kind of stuff, Kubernetes gives you that like overall API. So what I love about Kubernetes is like API is defined. I'm gonna create a deployment. Here's an API spec for it. I'm gonna create a job. Here's an API for it. So imagine like you are as a platform engineer trying have all of these APIs available, have certain restrictions or certain best practices and all of that kind of stuff, and then like you bake all of that in an agent that a developer come and ask unexpected because like usually like if you when you go to backstage and all of that kind of stuff, you have to go through specific things. Or like, hey, I select this, I select that. I need to know. But like sometimes you may not know, and it might be too much. So what I see Gen AI happening is like asking the user, like, what are you really trying to do? and then like, hey, I'm deploying like a quick app that do this, and like a lot of decisions could be based on that, like your best practices or based on your APIs, and you get out of the box, hey, your thing is created, and you could see that like works for different things. This is from a workflow perspective. The other thing that you mentioned is from an operational perspective. What a good thing that I have seen in Gen AI is like the when you have something that like smarter in doing the search overall and I understand like different things. One problem that OpenTelemetry is trying to solve is just correlate things together just to make it helpful. So imagine that you have like a lot of things happening all over the place. You have like applications, you have different things, and you push all of this to like a lake of data, and then like Gen AI would be able to like always search and understand like what's really happening, gives you operational insights. You ask a question like how to do this and things like that. I don't want to say like it will take over, but it will fundamentally help in providing a better productivity, because like what you can do, like here's the thing, like if I have a tool that, so if I backtrack for a second, why you use Kubernetes and you not use Docker Compose, for example? Like
Hmm.
because like Kubernetes does a lot of things behind the scenes. There's controllers that understand like how to do Docker Compose work, and I have seen people use it in production and works really nice. And then they could spin things up, but it's not the same kind of engine. Like Kubernetes gives you more options and availability. So what I'm trying to get to in this point is more about like why not use the tool to increase what you are trying to achieve, and instead of me sitting and looking at like 100 dashboard trying to figure like why this container is crashing or why this service is down, can I use something to tell me like quickly why this is down, because like it have all of the insight and things. So I think that's where like I see Gen AI super helpful if you just like want to implement it. But again, get a problem, see how to solve it, and have like list of solutions behind the scene that like solve to this problem, and then see if there's a great fit. But I think there's a great fit for Gen AI, documentation
Yes,
creation, all the kind of stuff.
absolutely, 100%, absolutely. I think I think one of the shocking things I've seen that the AI should be used is nobody's talking about it, and there is nothing. There's a no need of AI, and everybody's talking about, oh, this we can do fancy text to image generation, video to text, and this kind of scenario. But I think the AI is a good tool to control the cost angle as well, considering you can have a boilerplate code for a lot of different things as well. I think in 2024, when you in the AWS reInvent, we did a live stream. Bedrock was a huge uh, presentations around Bedrock, and they have done so much more thing in the Bedrock. And I think remember one of the demo I see is like you can give them an architecture diagram. This is my front end, this is my back end. Now I have database attached to it, and now it's create anything for you. Obviously it's had some mistake in it, but it's a very good ready-made car, and now you can go inside the car and fix some stuff up, and now you can actually this actually make your time more manageable as well, considering where you have everything deployed by yourself and from the scratch as well. I hope to see more of the talks around in the platform engineering in journal, how and what are the pieces in the development life cycle that could be incorporated in the platform, having some capabilities for the developer to use AI within the platform. And also the AI distribution is also a big challenge, because not everyone can support the humongous architecture to train the algorithm and then tune them and give them a historical data, and have a 7 different development team and engineer. They look at it, and then there's a policy enforcement as well for the AI hacking, all these kind of stuff. So I think it would be easier if the platform can give you all these kind of capabilities, and how we can actually support that as well. But now moving on to the next challenge is like in IDP in general, internal developer portal, and internal developer platform, internal developer portal, how well, which way you look at it, but it's still an IDP. So we can talk about it. So Ahmed, can you tell us, like in 2024, what is the latest you have seen in the IDP? And what is IDP beyond UI? We're giving developers a UI to interact and then spin up cloud resources at the back end. And you have only one control to enable anything the developers need on their developer workflow. So, what is your wish list for the IDP to have? And if somebody is selecting an IDP, what is the selection criteria you will ask people considering the problem they have and then pick up the right solution for this?
So this is a great question, and not necessarily having like a sorted list around in this topic, but like one thing that I'm gonna tell you, like IDB is not about only about UI. Just it's about like having
Hmm.
many interfaces to solve a problem, abstract different things. Could be a UI, could be a CLI, could be API, it could be anything. This is like where how to fit it and integrate it. Usually the UI is helpful, but like let's backtrack for a second. Like you have the AWS console, GCP console, you usually go do things in Terraform. Just like that's because like how you want to like make things like more repeatable and all of the kind of stuff. So that's where like I gonna see where you really select when you really select an IDB, you have to go back to the problem. There's a problem about creation. There's a problem about service discovery. There's a problem about inventory. There's a problem about servability, like how you like make sure everyone is onboarding faster to your systems, how you make connections, how you make dependencies, how you like serve everything from like a single place. And I'll get back to a single place in a second, because what I have seen people is trying to reinvent like uh let's get like an IDBs that have everything in it. Like what I mean by everything is just like do the monitoring, do everything, do all of that kind of stuff. I don't think this is right. I think like you need to treat your IDB as like your like a single pane of glass to other things, but like don't reinvent it. If you use a software for observability, let's not try to make your IDB the observability tool, but to guide you through the basic stuff and then take you to your observability thing. If you're trying to make it
Yes.
through Kubernetes, let's not just like push more Kubernetes into it. Just like it's enough to know that this application uses this Kubernetes cluster, has a couple deployments, and that's about it. We don't have to push like too much into it. So, like the idea at the end of the day is like you are trying to have a standardization. So, where I see IDBs helping really in most organization, just like I'm a new developer coming to the organization, I don't know the ecosystem. I go to like one place and it guide me through like how many services, how I can use the software, what's my docs look like, all of that kind of stuff. The one thing that I'm gonna tell you from experience on different things, Backstage is a great framework, but it's not the tool to use outside of the box because it gives you a lot of quality like content, data model, all of that kind of stuff. But like you have to implement a lot. So it's a big investment. What I have seen is there are many other IDBs coming to arise, different companies trying to solve similar problem, but trying to provide this integration out of the box. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the investment that you are trying to make. Like one thing that comes with open source, and we have to be like very cautious about this. When you buy from a vendor, the build versus buy thing, you have to consider the open source as a buy as well. It's not just the build; it fades in between. But the idea is like once you get it, once you install it, you own it. So there's a maintenance out of it. So you have to understand like where is this gonna get you? How much investment that you have to get from there. Uh, so yeah, but like first to go back to your question about like get an IDB that makes standardization easier, that has a lot of integrations to integrate with most of the tools that you already use, and like not try to like over if something that you have tools already in place that you've been using and that IDB doesn't integrate with it well, you're gonna invest a lot of time trying to make it work. The other thing is like be cautious of the investment of you are making because like this is one of the things like it's important because can give you one idea. If you change things behind the scene, people might not notice. But when you change the front door of your house, people will notice quickly. So like you have to be cautious in when you change the front door, because the front door is the things that like always look. If I change something internally in my house, people pass by, they don't know. If people like knock on my doors, they will always see what's inside. Sure, but like I'm talking about like you have to be cautious about this because this is like your interface to your organization. So you have to make sure like you make a cognizant decision about this cost, integration of the other elements that usually you get from an IDP. But like also one thing that I started to think about more is like, what's your IDB serve? One focus that I have seen in the past years is focus on engineering or engineers specifically or developers, which is great. But like, does it focus on like organizational structure? Does it gives you reports on what's happening? Does it provide feedback for other people? Like engineers are part or engineering workflow is part of the equation, but there is a business section also. Like you have to make sure that this is involved, like from cost, from other perspectives, from healthy, from how's the organization like it's healthy or not, like what's your trends look like, all of the kind of stuff are important as well. So you have to think about it from both sides to see how it works.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think like on the same side of the debate is like when we see finally see, and let's say if the platform engineering finally incorporated, because I think in the open source side of thing we use this ladder: sandbox, incubation, and graduation. So if I try to see platform engineering, I believe it's coming out of the sandbox really soon. If not, if some people think no, it's still a sandbox project in its infinity. But I believe the time is out. It's now some sort of an incubated project. Now it's a very right time to think about, because now is a January 2nd, 2025. Being engineer, being developers, being ML engineer or open source contributor, it's very important to understand what's happening in the platform engineering in general. How you think, because we debate a lot in some of other places as well. What is the angle, how the job is gonna change or gonna look like in the near future when the internal developer platform or the platform become a real thing or become graduated finally, and everybody start buying it or developing it. And build versus buy persona has always been there. What is the right is investment has to be made. It's come to your wonderful phrases. Let's understand the problem first and then make a decision. But in terms of developers and all the roles exist today, is there something new happening, and is there something weird happening to some of the jobs anytime soon? Or how this ecosystem evolve when platform engineering becomes a graduated project?
Uh, okay, so here's the thing. Like 15 years ago, when I started like the industry thing, I need to learn a lot of things, but like not as much as I need to learn now. Just like from cognitive overload. Like remember, like Docker was like sure, yeah, Kubernetes was still like a new thing a few years back, and then like the amount of tooling that was introduced and platforms from like 15 years 20 years till now, it's impressive. And I talk about this in many of my presentations because like you need to understand like a developer entering like an engineer or someone entering the industry like years ago entering now, there's a different set. Like some stuff like you may even like back in the day, if I ask you about Git, you probably sure, yeah, I know Git, I know SVN, like a couple things here and there. Now like there are 100 tools. Like go to the CNCF landscape and I take a screenshot and put it in my presentations. It's just like it's humongous. Like it's just like I I've been in the industry for a while and like I didn't know like 60% of this. I know tools by name, but like would I be able to use all of them? The cognitive load is really, really getting like more and more. So what's my advice to people is like focus on like the things, not try to like get the like there's no 100% anymore. It's just hard. Like let's focus on like what are we really trying to do. Are we focusing on containers? Let's get to the basics and then learn like what's happening around the basics and learn like what's platform engineering gonna do to you or like to your industry. If you are back end that engineer, for example, and like focus on that. Like don't get distracted by like the 100 things around, because it's good. One thing that I usually use in my day-to-day experience, like I don't dive into every new thing, but I know them on top of my head. Like don't want to say I know all of them on top of my head, but like I'm aware, like, oh, AWS launched this new thing. Sure, yeah, check it later. I know the title, but I don't know what it does. And then like when I start to solve a problem, that like I try to refresh my memory and see like if there's something that serves that particular problem, and then I start to get there. Don't try to get like everything out of the way, because like this is gonna be like you're always gonna feel stressed. Is that like you can't catch up with technology? I don't think anyone can catch up with technology because technology is too fast and like it's hard. But like you have to keep up with in a rhythm that like if you are a backend engineer, you want to focus on like what I'm doing from a backend, understand APIs, understand like the things that it's really related to. If you are doing front end, let's focus on that. If you are doing DevOps, let's focus on like the few set of tools that you have seen the trend in the industry. At the end of the day, the one thing that I love about tech industry in general, it's not tool oriented. It's skill set oriented. So the skill set that you need to have is problem solving. The tools come second, as I keep saying. Problem comes first because the business is having a problem. Is it either like, hey, I want to market faster, or I want to build something? Like the technology is a tool that get us to that years ago. So back in the day, like in the 90s, like early in the 90s, people can still go from one place to one place. They can walk. When the technology came with bicycle, it just like reduced the time. When cars and automobiles came, reduced the time. When planes and like all of the kind of stuff. So technology is like solves a problem in a faster way, automated way, all of the kind of stuff. But like you still can do it without all of these tools. So don't focus on the tools. Focus on the skill set, the problem, what are you trying to solve, the standards, and from there you would be able to like accommodate different tools. Today's Kubernetes, tomorrow whatever it's gonna become. Today's something else. Tools are not are, as I say, interchangeable. Make sure that the tools, like the tool set, is interchangeable. Your skill set is the more important thing that you have to focus on.
Absolutely, that's a very very good way to think about it as well. Because I think you drive a very wonderful phrase, and I will keep this in my mind. I drill this up right now in my head because I don't want to actually get lost with it. Because it's problem driven development is a word where we won't speak often, and that's a problem in our industry right now. We always think about how good the tool is and how much of the configuration and customizability I can achieve with it, before forgetting this main term that we spoke about is what is the business need and how I can actually bridge this with what is in the tool that can actually might be shorten my development life cycle, or also faster time to the market as well. So I hope if everybody listening to us, problem driven development is a future in IT. Otherwise, it's been tough to live in here as well. Now, the final few questions, because I think this is a very good, important question to ask here. We spoke about is Kubernetes has to be abstracted away from us. Some people are very heavily attached with Kubernetes, like me. We speak about Kubernetes all the time, regardless of some people like us or not, but we love to speak about Kubernetes in general. Now, everybody's speaking about it. Yes, it's a good technology to have it. It can solve some purposes, but the problem is that it asks is not as everything as a free lunch. It's ask you to reorient and reorganize your organizational setting or culture, where business tell us, oh, we can't do this. This is a very problematic scenario for us, and we can't do a cultural shift or within the organization just to adopt the tool, and then they get away from the Kubernetes. Now with every company is like that, and Kubernetes become an abstraction. And we have 4 certification in our backyard, in our garage. So when the Kubernetes is abstracted away from us, so the question become very vital. These certifications, that is actually CKA, CKAD, CKAT, KCNA, do they still serve a purpose, or now I just think about going to other certification that are platform oriented? There are not many of them, but still there is a backstage certification in journal. So what is a path developer follow in considering the problem or where the organization structure they have?
So I don't believe that Kubernetes is going away like quickly, uh, because it just like I didn't see enough trend yet to share like, hey, like just like we are not exposing Kubernetes at all. Like, and even an organization who are saying like we build a tool around Kubernetes, we do all of that kind of stuff. Kubernetes is a thing. Like you just like like engineers have at least view access to see resources. They get to, because it's that, I don't want to say it's a trend, but like the API is more stable and mature. So what these certifications serve, like, and certification is like, to me, and like I was sharing this earlier on LinkedIn this morning, is like certification is a basic knowledge. Doesn't get you to really like solving the core problem. It gets you a good fundamental understanding of like what you can do with that tool, like how to use it, how to manage it, depending on the certification level and all of that kind of stuff. So I don't think they are waste. I think like the knowledge that you know how Kubernetes are running, but like the thing, like we have to make sure that you're solving a problem. Technology has to be interchangeable. You have to build, like when I started doing my work as engineering, things like you learn about from start back in the day as just normal engineer, like not even in the DevOps industry. Like, yeah, you talk about like decoupling, you talk about like things like that, how you handle dependency, like all of the kind of things that makes your software is more dynamic. So let's not pick on the tool and say like Kubernetes, everything is built on Kubernetes. One thing that I could say, everything is built in containers rather than just Kubernetes. And Kubernetes is an orchestration tool. There's Nomad, for example, and some companies prefer Nomad from HashiCorp rather than Kubernetes for different reasons, different factors. As I'm saying, it's a tool. Some people not using containers at all, and their organization still like going as it's supposed to go. So yeah, the tools at the end of the day is one thing. Yeah, we focus about. Is Kubernetes gonna exist? It's gonna, like my assumption, and this is my personal opinion, it's gonna exist. This certification will be helpful. Like you're gonna see more people want to get certified or learn about it because it's fundamentally like one of the ways of doing things. You don't necessarily have to manage the whole life cycle of it. So it's always good to know how. I'm gonna give you an example. The CKA, for example, the administration, the administrator certificate, teach you how to like run your own managed controller and then all of the kind of stuff. So you do like cube admin and things like that. And then I don't know if I lost you or not. Hopefully you're still here. But yes, I have seen like this is the certification. But like, let's be honest, how many organizations really run their control plane? And how many they offload this to the cloud? So that's one of the things that like I I probably don't wanna operationalize like how I run like my control plane and all of the kind of stuff. Like, sure, I learned it, but like, is it the right choice? If you ask me like why I would go for it, unless there is a problem that I'm trying to solve. So and then most of the clouds are, and then there's one thing that I talked about in on social media, like EKS order mode. Like you probably like if you are testing something with Kubernetes, it's just like, and you want to install like really like at least out of the box five five to 10 other components beside Kubernetes to get things running. So that solves a problem. It's just like you launch it, you get a deployment done, and that's all. And everything is getting ready for you. So it's not going to go away, but it's going to get abstracted more and more. Cloud provider will understand like what is the reason for doing that. The industry will like get into a way where to understand like how to make sure still running behind the scene. A lot of scenes are powered by Kubernetes, but like let's not make it complicated because it just like Kubernetes books are very complicated. There are too many things that like you don't see on a day to day. It's good to know that they still exist if you want them, but like not necessarily have to use them. How many times we have seen like the control plane configuration in a production cluster that we have? Like, do we want to manage etcd? Like, don't know if I don't know if you want to manage etcd. I don't want to manage etcd. Like, it's just like these are the things that like sure, I love Kubernetes, but like there are complexity coming out of it, and knowing about it, it's good, but like managing it in a real scenario, in a stressful situation, all of that kind of stuff, just makes things harder. So let's focus again. Problem. Where's the problem? Why are we solving? And how to solve it faster, easier, more productive. But I'm attached to Kubernetes too. But like, if one day I find, and I can tell you this, and I don't say this too often. Some cases, I would prefer serverless over Kubernetes because different scenario solves different problem, solves scaling problem, solves speed problem. Like there are certain scenarios where like serverless is much better than Kubernetes. Yeah, like, but other than that, I will see which problem, and then I will try to see which tool in my disposal I can use, and then I apply it.
Yes, absolutely. And and let's time it's my time to give a recap, and then I go back to you. Like, is it a good recap for what we I think discussed today? So we agreed that Kubernetes might be should be invisible, but we should choose wisely and determine and evaluate where you are and where you want to go. Evaluate team skills and strategies, and make sure cost will not grow unpredictably no matter what. And treat Kubernetes like a hypervisor or hyperscaler. So if I need an EC2 instance, I don't want to see what's happening in the cloud. I just need an EC2 instance. And it just stood up for me. Oh, boom, now you have an EC2 instance, and now you deploy the stuff as well. And I'm interested. And with platform engineering, I certainly believe, me and Am, that Kubernetes is heading toward the same direction as a hypervisor, hyperscalers. But when and we will accept this is still hidden. And as with everything in life, is time will let us know. But I think the three questions what I see are the important, and you need to recap and you need to tell us, are these a good question to think about it? Will you abstract Kubernetes by investing in the right combination of Kubernetes with WASM or container? Will you buy into a platform solution, or will you choose the managed Kubernetes in the cloud with thoughtful strategies? So I think if we boil down the three questions, so there's a Kubernetes with WASM or container, or I strictly go into the platform engineering approach, or go into the managed cloud provider, or I can actually add AI on, sprinkle AI on top of everything what I do, and then AI will shorten my development life cycle or can help me control my cost. But these are the still challenging. It's look easy on paper, but in theory it's very tough to consider it. But Ahmed, it's your time. If I ask you today, in June 2, 2025, what are the three, four, or five areas in the platform engineering where you are investing more time? Which are those?
So okay, that's a hard question and tough. But just like I'm still getting my thought for the year. But like the one thing that like will bring back is focus about the user experience. That's like the most important one. Like we are doing this for a business that need to deliver faster. So like we need to engage more engineers. They are your customers. So like that's where you invest. So you invest in like developer enablement in a way, and like how you make that faster. Doesn't matter, it's Kubernetes or other things. The other thing, like I want to say, embrace open source, but be careful. Like, don't take it open source as like, hey, it's free, I'll use it. Sure, I'm not doubting that, but like there's a cost of running it, so you have to understand the investments that you are making around this. The other thing is like, try to, as much as you can, to have a really quick way of identifying problems with platform engineering, and have like a way of saying like, this is working, this is not working, and focus back on the users that you have seen, where like, what is actually they need. It's kind of like, when where people do like the market fit kind of exercise, or like, I, I, I'm a person who like, I'm an engineer, so sometimes I would go like, I want to build this. This is cool. It's gonna change everything. But to be honest, the simplest features are the ones that the user want. They want like a flag to do like, hey, click this and things will happen. At the end of the day, the user experience is what matters. Uh, Kubernetes and AI is not going anywhere. They're gonna still be there, like for a while. Kubernetes is mature orchestration, but like, don't use like, make sure that you understand like, Kubernetes is a tool behind your platform. If you want to change it or add to it, add to it. Make it your orchestrator. Make it like, sure, if I can get serverless, I want to get serverless. If I can get something else, let's get something else. Let's add to the mix. Let's make it an interchangeable tool. But like, yeah, let's not focus on one tool. I'm very, very deeply like love Kubernetes the way as a platform. It does the orchestration. I like the idea of having like a central. What I love about Kubernetes is like, have an API stable. I know I can query, figure out what's happening, all of that kind of stuff. If there's a better API that could do the job for me, sure. The idea of controllers solves a lot of problem from like how you deploy and manage and self-heal things. The one thing that is important and just we have to make sure that we focus about is FinOps. It's one of the things that like we have to look into. Wasm, I don't know much. I love the idea. Uh, I think like it has a great traction where like you can write in different languages and compile it to assembly and just like WebAssembly and just like run it everywhere and anywhere. Like you mentioned Spin Cubes, there are different vendors that using it for different things. A lot of companies, CDN companies using it for Edge. Like there are many use cases for it. Would that be the thing? Might be. Like, do we need to run things like really near to the user on Edge? Let's go back into like one idea. Like, sure, Wasm scales faster. Like, I completely get that and understand it, but like, there's machinery behind it. It still needs somehow to scale based on whatever something that need to runs it. So like, can that also scale faster? Like, depends on how to abstract it. If it's abstracted in the right way, I would say like, sure, it will add a lot. I write in any language, ship it, it works. I don't care. Similar to like what we have seen with containers. You ship it with a container, it works. You have a standard API, and that's all you care about. So I think like there are a lot of good use cases for it. I encountered few, but like I don't know if it's gonna be like really the trend. I can see it faster, but it has a lot of good use cases as well. Other than that, just like the most important thing, look at the ROI for every investment you make. Kubernetes or not, serverless or not, FinOps. Like it's just like you want to invest in something that like have a return, and you want to make sure that return on your investment is really high, or like it will pay off on the long term. Adoption is really important into platform. It takes a lot of things to get like culture in any organization and all of that kind of stuff. So
Yes, absolutely. These are the wonderful thought as well. And I think you have to keep looking at it, Ahmed, or LinkedIn and some various different places as well, because we learned today 2025 is going to be a very good year if you embrace problem driven development. That is a very good word to think about it as well. And during those problem driven development, if you saw and take advantages of tooling that either in the CNCF or embraced in this open source side of things, and remember, all this brings some sort of additional layer of burden on you. So you need to keep track of it. You need the cost always go down, and you need to fine tuning for that. I think one thing is I love about CNCF and other thing in open source tool in journal. Back in the day in 2012 to 2016, if I'm stuck, I am being stuck. But now with these all the tooling, I can actually mix and mash together, and I can have find a wonderful solutions for where I am stuck, and I get out of it so quickly. So that's a very good solution. Now, as Ahmed wonderfully speak during the conversation, when you develop something, you have to think about other people in your company as well. It's not just you, it's many other who like to embrace it or not. One of the failure of open source solution, I look at it, is resemble to few people but not too many people as well. That's where the problem became. And if you are actually building commercial solutions on top of open source, this is a huge problem, because if not resonating with many people, this end up nobody buying your solution. So that's a very intelligent decision has to be made. And also I think AI embrace should be where the cost should be go down. It's not that where you actually, I think back in the days, everybody's so closely attached with Kubernetes, they end up thinking about only Kubernetes or nothing else. And I'm seeing the same thing with AI. Everybody is thinking about, I need to run inference on this thing, inference or that thing. I need to tell my engineer to do this stuff. But I think the way Ahmed phrased it, this is the winning formula for you: problem driven development, regardless where you are. And that's a problem with AI. Nobody thinking about the domain and the solution or the problem they're solving. They're just implementing it. And I think the skyrocketing cost will end up nobody is adopting AI as a product, but as a feature. And everybody's speaking about treat AI as a feature, not a product. So I hope there are many things in the plate, but Ahmed, I will be keep on looking at it. I'll look at you as well going forward. Maybe during the QCD New York, I might ask you to join me, or we can give a very much 1 hour live coverage of KCD New York. That I definitely keep on my radar.
Would love that. Like once we have a date, I'll keep you posted and would love to have you around New York. It's gonna be summertime, so hopefully like the weather will be great and we hope that like everything will be excited. And I'll keep you posted on the date once we launch it, and hopefully we'll see everyone there as well. But thank you so much for having me today. I really enjoyed the conversation with you. And please, if anyone have more questions, let them come my way. Happy to answer more questions on the topic.
Thank you. Wonderful, Abe. Thank you. Thank you so much. I love the conversation we have. You are the first appearance on, I think the second appearance on Cloud Native FM. One we already did on AWS reInvent.
You got disconnected?
Yes, I believe. I just
Okay.
disconnected for a second.
Okay.
So, Prashant, thank you very much for your chatting with us and sharing your question with thoughts as well. I look forward to the more one and hope to answer so those as well in the near future. Make sure I leave up with you these three words: problem driven development is a way to go. Thank you very much for listening to the Cloud FM podcast. Hope to see you in the near future. Bye bye.